This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian AM. I'm Hubert Edwards. I'm your host, and you're here on Guardian 96.9 FM. We're going to have ourselves a conversation. Yesterday, I sat in for Shavaga Lang on his program, Z Live, and we had a very lively conversation. This morning, I want to continue that conversation to some extent. There was a forum which was held, and the issue of marital rape was discussed in that forum, but there's also some other things which came out of that process. And one of that include the whole idea of, let me find the right word, it's legalizing or decriminalizing sex work. And we want to talk about that this morning. I think it's a very important topic. We have one of our leading pastors, Pastor Dr. Dave Burrows, who is of the view that this should not be done. He's of the view that the issues around sex work is so dehumanizing that we should not really think in that direction. Wanted to have Dr. Burrows on, but he's currently in a meeting. He indicated that if he gets away, then he will join. We will anticipate that. But in the meantime, we will kind of, have our own discussion. We will talk about what some of the big issues are. Legalization versus, are we going to legalize or are we going to decriminalize, and the difference between the two? What are your thoughts? You know the numbers. They are 323-6232, 325-4259, and 325-4316. Our text line 422-4796. Yeah, 422-4796. If you want to chime in on this conversation. And then yesterday on the show, there was a caller who mentioned one aspect, and I had committed to go back and really have a little bit of a thought, because I thought it brought important balance to the whole process. And unfortunately, we got caught up in the whole discussion. It was a very lively discussion, and so I neglected to do that. So I'll do that this morning. And so if you want to join and you want to come in on the conversation, then certainly you want to be. We look forward to having the conversation with you. I pulled some, and I think this is a summary from one of my colleagues' Facebook page, where he outlined what were some of the issues which were discussed. So at the forum, including the other issues which were discussed, there was also discussions around sex work and abortions. And the train of the conversation is that prostitution should be decriminalized and more funding be provided to non-governmental organizations that work with sex workers in the Bahamas, according to the document. It was advised that the word prostitute be replaced with sex worker. So here are some of the thinking. Let's no longer refer to these individuals as prostitute. Let's call them sex workers. It was agreed to amend Section 8 of the Sexual Offences Act so that soliciting for immoral purposes is removed, the reports noted. So when they say agreed, this is the persons within the forum itself having this conversation, not that the authorities, not that the government as yet said, well, this is what we are going to do. So it was agreed to amend the Sexual Offences Act that the prohibition on living off earnings of prostitution does not apply to the dependents of the sex workers. Some very important issues here. I think these are drawing on some social implications. We will delve into that. It was also agreed to amend Section 43 of the Penal Code, dealing with living with or being habitually in the company of a prostitute. Is also deemed as knowingly living on the earnings of a prostitute. So if you so happen to have someone in your household, family member, maybe the individual is the breadwinner by being a prostitute or a sex worker, there is an offense for living with that individual and actually for surviving or living off the proceeds of that individual's effort. So what say you? Dr. Burrows is very, very clear on his views as to what should or should not be done. And I think, given that all of these things came out of the same forum as we discussed yesterday on marital rape, I thought we would just simply close the circle by having this discussion, and definitely would love to have his thought. But in the meantime, here are some of the things which he's quoted to have said in the Guardian. On the issue of prostitution, I must begin by stating that I am and will always be for the promotion of values and virtues that enhance life rather than vices that contradict decent living. And we can always align ourselves. I certainly align myself with that type of a thinking. We have to get to a place where we start to understand and accept that there are some realities out there. We have sisters and brothers, part of the human family, who do these things. It's no sense sticking your head in the sand and pretending that these things don't happen. Whether you want to refer to it as prostitution or sex work, these are activities which individuals engage in as a means of their livelihood, as a means of their daily survival. And so we can take that anyhow we want, but we must not run away from that. We have to come to grips with the fact that persons are doing these things, and the question is, how do we afford them support? How do we seek to create an avenue where we can see them in their humanness as much as is possible, and start to think about the solutions that we can bring to bear on their life. Now, persons out there may be saying, well, I don't know what you're talking about because I don't need you to see me in that way. But what I'm trying to speak to is the fact that many persons are of the view, that, look, we kind of don't want to interact or engage with any persons like that. And we don't look to see the humanity in them. We see them as lesser persons because, they're involved in this type of immoral activity. But, we really have to remember that at the end of the day, they are human beings. They are individuals who will be able to, change their lives around. They can become just pretty much anything that they want to be. And then there are individuals who take the view that, I should have the right to do what I want to do within the space that I want to do it. But of course, in this instance, the action is against the law. We have a caller on the line. Caller, go ahead. We'd love to hear your views on this or related topics.
Godly day to the stock in the voice along with you, Hubert.
A godly day to you.
We need justice law in this country.
Why do we need that?
I have 2 questions for you. Right. Right now, right? If you desires for the persons to be licensed, right, for their business.
License? They're talking about just decriminalizing it. So if they do it,
if it's decriminalizing it, right? So
Yes.
that means they're going to give them a license to do what they're doing.
Yeah, in a way, in a sense, yes. Yes.
Okay. My other question is, right? This is a twofold question. What the license would cost, and where would be their place of business in order for the public to know, knowing that you're promoting whatever you are promoting on national radio.
I don't like how you say that, you know.
What you mean? It's obvious. You mean you don't like how I say that?
What is obvious?
That you promoting or not promoting it.
I'm not promoting anything. I'm having a discussion. Why would you conclude that I'm promoting something?
Okay, look here. Let me ask. According to your monologue, we have those people in the country, right?
Yes.
And you want to decriminalize it, right?
I want to decriminalize it. When did I say that?
Decriminalized it.
When did I say that?
You just mentioned it.
No,
you just mentioned it to me just seconds ago.
And this is okay. I don't usually do this, right? But I'm going to say this morning. This is a problem I tend to have with you. You kind of like to listen to portions of what has been said and then skew it towards the outcome that you desire. I simply highlighted that there was a forum, and in that forum, based on the discussion that we had yesterday, we were discussing marital rape. Marital rape was discussed in that forum. Another aspect that was discussed in that said forum is the issue of considering decriminalizing sex work. And so I'm raising the issue. Hubert Edwards is not saying I am promoting sex work. So I don't want you to say that. I don't want you to give anyone an iota of impression that I am doing that, because that's absolutely not something that I would do. From my perspective, and let me be very clear, I do not support an individual using their body, whether it's male or female, as a means of earning a livelihood. I don't think it's good. I think it's a degrading situation. But at the end of the day, I am a human being and I am going to be real. We know what is happening out there. And we want to engender a discussion, a mature discussion, a discussion which persons can engage in with openness. And not because I become the vessel of the words, not because it's my voice that you're hearing, you automatically say that I am promoting. I'm not promoting anything. I'm facilitating a discussion. And so if you want to be a part of this discussion, then you bring your ideas to the table and you put your views. You can simply come and say, I certainly don't agree with that. And I'm fine with it. So, let's do that. Let's do that respectfully. So here we are. We're waiting. I think Dr. Burrows is going to join. Is he there yet? No, he's not there. So we'll take...
Yes, I'm here. I'm here now.
Okay, you're there, Dr. Burrows. Certainly a pleasure to have you. So we're having this discussion around, yesterday I speak extensively on the issue of marital rape. You also have some points which we will touch on. But we want to start with this idea where you have been very clear. You said that, you don't think that prostitution should be decriminalized. You go on to say, prostitution, in my mind, is a dehumanizing and degrading activity and a vice that should not be incentivized by decriminalization or legalization. prostitution is fraught with criminal and health issues which do not go away with decriminalization. Talk to us about that. Why would you frame it in this? And, is it that you have a very hard position? And is it that there isn't an argument that can be made from the other side which would convince you that there is room for flexibility?
Well, I think the most important thing in any discussion is to realize that the person presenting an opinion, it's their opinion. So what I'm doing is offering an opinion. And my opinion is based upon my research. Whenever I speak on any subject, it means that I have gone through extensive research with it. So according to my research, the whole sex as a business industry, in life, you cannot accommodate every behavior. There has to be penalties for wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And if we try to eliminate wrong, what we do is incentivize it. So let me give you an example. In California, they decided that shoplifting would be decriminalized up until the amount of, I think, $950.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was that everybody, people who may not have been shoplifting before, they started shoplifting because they said, well, I'm not going to get convicted. I'm not going to, have to pay a fine or anything like that. So if I'm going to get off, then taking the risk and shoplifting, it becomes incentivized.
Right.
There should be a penalty for every wrong behavior. Now, the question often is, what is a reasonable penalty? In the case of sex trafficking, one of my points was that sometimes the people who are penalized are the people who are also victimized. So let's say, for example, a woman is kidnapped and sold into sex trafficking. And then she goes on the street or somewhere and she gets busted. And so she has to pay a penalty. Of course, the behavior is wrong, so there's a penalty involved. But the ones who are doing the trafficking may receive the same penalty or a less penalty. To me, the penalty, the severeness of the penalty should be placed upon the trafficker and the facilitator, as opposed to the victim. Not that the actual person who's doing the transaction shouldn't bear some burden, because I think whenever there is a crime or wherever there's an unacceptable behavior,
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't eliminate penalties, because when you eliminate penalties, then you incentivize it and you make it easier for more persons to be involved.
Okay. Go ahead.
The other aspect of it is, according to the research that I've seen, where there have been instances of decriminalization of prostitution or legalization, it has not changed the outcome. So, the crime doesn't go down. And in every case where you decriminalize or legalize something, it never eliminates the black market. So some people will just choose not to be regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So, those are some of the issues. And
Yes.
so I was basically offering my opinion based upon my research.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I know you relatively well, and I know you're a real person. You understand the streets. You understand what is taking place out there in reality. What measure of support, therefore, given the fact that this is not going to go away, persons have been doing this from time immemorial. Prostitution is referred to as one of the oldest professions in humanity. What type of a support should be afforded, whether as a result of government policy, support through NGOs and other organizations for these individuals? What sort of a help? How do you start to kind of direct persons in a way to get them to move from what you describe as a dehumanizing circumstance to a better life? Because I am sure if you ask some individuals, they will tell you that they're doing this because of. Talk to us.
Well, crime will never be eliminated. So crimes of all nature will continue to exist, and people will always use the I shouldn't say the excuse or the reasoning that they have to survive. And so people will do what they have to do to survive. Now, by the same token, that doesn't mean that when people decide to break the law, we said, well, people got to survive. Let's let everybody break the law. Because then you have a total breakdown of society. You have laws to keep order. So we have to keep the order even in situations where persons feel like this is my only option.
Mm-hmm.
And what you find is that when people are trying to survive, if you take away one option, they find another option. And persons who have been convinced that the illegal route is the only option, they will just find another illegal route. But as the keepers of the society, we have to make sure that the laws protect society.
Mm-hmm.
The individual, they have to make their own individual decision. I can't say for a person, who's going through a situation and they've elected, and they say they have no choice. I can't really speak for them, but I can say that as a society, we cannot just allow every wrong behavior to be continued without any penalties.
Yeah, but doesn't it beg a question? And I'm not saying it is or isn't, but wouldn't it beg the question as to the extent to which we need to look at our social support systems, our safety net mechanism for individuals who may have been influenced into that kind of a lifestyle as a result of economic circumstances, social circumstances, familial circumstances, abuse, pressure, those type of behaviors?
Well, we have a plethora of social issues. In fact, when you look at our social structure right now, in many ways, you can say globally, and the Bahamas is a part of the globe, globally, the social issues are mounting and increasing. And so, there is always a need to address social issues. And we have to try our best to maintain order so that we don't end up with anarchy. So there'll always be the struggle between the resources being available to deal with the issues at hand. And that's an ongoing thing.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll pick up that point when we come back on the other side of the break. Pastor Boris, we have a couple of texters, and we will get to those. So you're listening to Guardian AM. I'm your host Hubert Edwards, and I'm here having a conversation with Pastor Dave Boris, and we're talking about the decriminalization or legalization of sex work, prostitution. Don't move. Come right back.
On the go? Missed the show? You can now listen to Guardian Radio talk shows anytime, anywhere on Spotify and YouTube by searching Guardian Radio 96.9 FM or by entering the name of your favorite show. You can also listen by logging on to GuardianTalkRadio.com and clicking on the podcast tab. Guardian Radio, continuing to provide you with fresh news and smart talk anywhere, anytime, all day.
One thing there is no debate about is that BTC has the best rates. Now, the best rates just got better because you pay half the price of the other guys with your BTC home internet and mobile services combined. Switching to BTC is a no-brainer because I pay less with BTC and get super fast internet with speeds up to 600 megs. The other guys, their internet only go up to 105 megs.
Get all the internet you want at half the price when you bundle your home internet and mobile. Visit a BTC store to make the switch today. Conditions apply.
Welcome back to Guardian AM. I am Hubert Edwards. We're having a brief conversation because we're not here for long, but we're having always a fundamental discussion when we get together with Pastor Dave Burrows. Great show as usual. This text says we have absolutely no morals. Our moral compass is totally off whack. They plan on legalizing prostitution. Question what else we plan on legalizing? We might as well change our name to Sodom and Gomorrah. I don't know if they plan to. It was a proposition. The truth is, we prostitute our labor, and also women in offices prostitute themselves for raise and salaries and a job title. Woman, okay, get the message. Mr. Edwards, this topic is going to go left, far left soon. Trust me on this one. No, it's not. It's not going to go left because we are here and we are having a mature conversation with very mature persons, including yourself. Mr. Edwards, in the Bahamas, we really need to do better morally. Yes, I go to strip club, so I still don't condone. Legally, we have to come to the point where we have standards. What are we telling our kids? Well, what are you telling your kid? Because you say you go to a strip club. You're trying to, I think you're kind of wanting to eat your cake and have it too, right? So, moral is supposed to be based on principles, and the principles are immutable. So you can't have it both sides. But I understand your position. You've been real and you've been honest, and we appreciate you for that. When we as a people understand that we have choices and certain freedoms, so when we respect human rights, we can maturely discuss these sensitive and touchy topics like prostitution, marital rape, and abortion. I agree with your premise that when you take these issues from a human rights perspective, you set a foundation for some very clear discussion, but also importantly, as you stated here, to do so in a mature way and to respect the fact that these are sensitive issues. But we have to do them, even at the point now where we are uncomfortable, and you may argue that we are not yet fully mature in doing so. The maturity will only come when we continue to do this. Hubert, it's sad that the direction we as a country is being forced to go based on what the rest of the world believes. It seems that the majority of these laws have an agenda to replace God's way. They know what this prostitution law will only encourage more decadence, the same with marital rape law. They know it will decrease any desire for marriage, further deteriorating our social values. Ultimately, we go along with these things to our own demise. So that is your views. There's some things that we could unwrap from that. Certainly, I think there is a line to be drawn between marital rape and the issue of decriminalizing prostitution. And so we will go to Pastor Dave and ask him his views on that. And, if you remember, you can finish the thought you were making when we went into the break, Pastor Burrows.
Okay, just to clarify something that I said earlier, here's the problem. Let's say somebody says they can't survive, and so they have to rob for a living. Do we legalize robbery? Do we legalize carjacking? Everybody who has a problem and they decide to go outside of the law, do we then become sympathetic and change the law to accommodate the behavior? And then if you accommodate one type of behavior, then when the next person comes along and say, well, what about my behavior? And do you end up where you have no laws? So that's one of the issues there. And as far as I know, there's this was confirmed to me in a third party way. What friend of mine said that they consulted with the Attorney General, and the Attorney General said there's no consideration in the Bahamas for decriminalization or legalization of prostitution. That's not an issue before the government. My understanding is that this is an issue that was brought up in a local a local forum that's happening. So international persons are here and they're bringing up this issue.
Yeah.
And I think in every society, the society has to address the issues based upon their values. When you have sovereign nations, and especially when you have democracies, the norms of each society are determined by the people, by the majority of the people, and by extension through their government. So this is an issue that the international community is presenting to us. And as a country, we have to say, okay, here is our moral position on this, here is our legal position on this, and the people will help decide whether or not this is something that's palatable. Persons like myself and others are offering an opinion, and my opinion is based upon my research that says that decriminalization and legalization of crimes do not eliminate those crimes or improve the situation of the victims.
Definitely. Let's take this quick call, Pastor Bowers, and then we come back because we definitely want to get your views on marital rape, because this was also an issue brought up in the same forum, and it's also a point which was just spoken to by the most recent texter. Caller, you're on the line. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Edwards. Good morning, Pastor Dave Burrows.
Good morning, 52.
Yeah,
let's
Edwards,
keep it nice and tight quickly.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm beginning to hate intellectuals, because it's like you're not seeing the global paradigm and where the world is shifting, the attack on the family structure. And I get sick when I hear the word sovereign and democracy, because those are meaningless without gonads. And so third world leaders and third world nations will continue to be manipulated and be the footstool in the global geopolitical grandstanding that I'm seeing. Have a good day. Since you don't want me to say what I have to say.
No. I'm saying just keep it tight. I want you to hear what you have to say. We have very limited time. So if you have some other points, you want to make them quickly? No? Okay, thank you for your contribution. So Pastor Bowers, your views on that, and we understand where you're coming from. And you are absolutely right. It's a matter for national decision. So the thing was proposed, there was a proposition made, it has to be looked at. It's going to go to the crucible of our morals and our values and our own set of sensibilities. And at the end of the day, the decision will be made based on that. But as it relates to marital rape, you have some points you're quoted in this very same article, which says that you believe that there needs to be some changes here. Talk to us about that.
Okay, now the article that was published, that was an excerpt from a very lengthy presentation. But when it comes to marital rape, when I look at the issue, there has to be a recourse for a person who is assaulted. So let's say, for example, I got an example of a woman who was who had a baby, and she was under medical care, and the doctor said, you can't have sex for a certain amount of time, and then the husband forces himself on the wife, so he basically sexually assaults her. So I think there should be some recourse. Now, one of the interesting comments made recently was from the Minister of National Security.
Pastor Dave, why is it that you use the term sexual assault versus rape?
Well, the thing about it is that rape in marriage becomes a very cloudy issue. Okay, for example, one of
I'm just trying to get very, 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 very pointed at this. Are you being guided by the legal constraints, or is this a constraint based on your religious conviction?
I'm talking from a legal perspective.
Okay.
And so basically, there has to be recourse for somebody who is violated. The problem with marital rape, if you just leave it open and not kind of tie it into or use the language of sexual assault, is it becomes a very, very cloudy issue, and you can have manipulation. So for example, I did my research and I found out that 11% of the men who are in prison have been wrongfully accused of rape. I also found several incidences, both in the United States and the UK, where women used the marital rape law to falsely accuse the husband to either extort him or to eliminate him. So when you look at something like marital rape, it's a very, very touchy issue, and it has to be approached very carefully. We can't assume that in a relationship such as marriage, where you have two people living together on an everyday basis, that one person or the other, well, in most cases, we're talking about the wife, would not use her position to extort her husband, okay? So although a woman has to be protected and women shouldn't be raped or sexually assaulted, we have to be very careful to make sure that provisions are in place to prevent abuse of the law. And one of the things that needs to happen along with any law is to make sure that there is a severe penalty for false accusations. And then also, when we look at rape or sexual assault, it cannot be a one size fits all. So you can't say, let's say, for example, the way I've seen the law portrayed is they're saying that a husband and wife can be having sex, and then in the middle of it, the woman says, I'm comfortable. So that man is charged with rape in the same way as a criminal breaking into someone's house and raping someone. There's clearly a difference. There's a degree, and there's the circumstances are totally different. So you can't have a penalty that is equivalent in a situation like that. And then there's a question as to whether or not, how can you prove what is being said? So basically you're taking the word of one person over the other, and that's a very, very difficult proposition in an instance like rape. So this issue is fraught with a lot of minefields.
I would agree with that. But the question at the end of the day is that there should be, and this is my position, Pastor Dave, I believe that there should be clarity brought to the legislation. I believe that it should change such that in the instances where, while it's fraught with challenges, in the instances where it can be clearly proven that that is so, that those persons do not escape punishment for such things. We have a couple of texters before we get back to this. We're taking a break at this point? Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we get to the text and we get some final words from Pastor Dave. These 1 hour show go very quickly. You're listening to Guardian AM. I'm Hubert Edwards, and we are having this conversation on whether to legalize or decriminalize prostitution. And of course, we're touching too again today on this issue of marital rape. Don't move, come right back.
Throughout our lifetime, we must all make decisions. No matter how we choose, the right one just needs to be made. Like having J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers as your insurance partner. We've been serving the Bahamas for over 100 years. Whether you need home, motor, marine, or commercial insurance, make the right decision. Call 397-2100 or visit jsjohnson.com.
J.S. Johnson Insurance. Peace of mind.
Loss of family members is very isolating, and people who have experienced loss appreciate when others have shared their grief. If you can't be there in person, go to the Nassau Guardian's website online at thenassauguardian.com and visit our obituary link. The Nassau Guardian's interactive obituary link allows you to read the funeral announcement, express condolences, or place photos on the online guest book for 1 full year. Losing a loved one is painful, but that pain isn't the worst thing to happen. Friends, loved ones, colleagues, and neighbors who ignore the loss compound the pain. Should the bereaved family wish to place the obituary and photos on our obituary site, just contact the Guardian's funeral industry partners or the Nassau Guardian. Remember, there isn't one magic right thing to say to someone experiencing loss that will make the loss less painful or easier to bear. The Nassau Guardian's obituary link, available online at thenassauguardian.com.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to Guardian AM. We are having our discussion, a brief discussion, because of the time that we have been allotted. But I think a wonderful discussion, nonetheless, a very sobering discussion. And as you can see, someone said earlier that, this discussion is going to go far left. I trust that we have proven that we can have these type of sensitive conversations, and we can do them in such a way that, there has to be, they don't need to be any rancor. They don't need to be any massive level of disagreement. What we're seeking to do is to kind of unfold and unwrap the issues, and then get to the point where we kind of unearth one or two solutions, or at least try to point into the direction of a solution. A great show as usual, Mr. Edwards. You're an open-minded person, but even you would say legalizing prostitution is a bad idea. So what telling our daughters or telling them there is an alternative way of making money than going to school? This is a sick world we live in. I certainly do not. I want to be unequivocally, I want to be clear. I do not support legalization of prostitution at all. I don't think it's the right way to go. I share the views of Pastor Dave that there are too many dehumanizing issues attached to it, which reduces the individual, reduces their humanity for someone to be able to be willing to support that. These pastors need to stop, call it what it is. Rape is forceful intercourse, whether married or not cloudy at all of legally. This is not the definition. We need to get it changed. This is human life we're talking about. If someone wrongfully accused a spouse, then where we are. If someone wrongfully accuses a spouse, then the law should also come down on them just as strong as the rapist. And I think you share that view with Pastor Dave, but certainly I agree with him. I agree with Pastor Dave that it is a cloudy issue, but I also want to align with your views that, look, we should call it what it is. At the end of the day, if you're going to frame it within the legal context, definitely as it currently is, then it's not, because the issue of consent does not arise, and therefore withdrawing consent isn't possible. But at the end of the day, yes, I believe that more persons should be conscious of, if they are supporting the side which says eliminate the legislation, to refer to it as exactly what it is. We have a caller on the line, so let's take this call before we go back to Pastor Dave, and to get some kind of a direction on what would be some solutions in his mind in navigating this very, very, very perilous issues fraught with challenges. Caller, go ahead quickly, please.
A very pleasant good morning, my respected and mentor, Hubert Edwards.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. We don't have a lot of time, sorry, this morning.
All right. And boy, Brother Edwards, and I'm saying this to Brother Dave Burrows as well, we got to be very careful with issues like this. Now I see why, right? When Jesus was on the earth, and he said there's really two kingdoms in the world, and he admonished us as spiritual believers, because in the kingdom of God, these things don't come up. These issues don't come up. Prostitution, marital race, because we see the body as a part of God, as a mortal, okay? And these things don't come up. But the thing is, we as spiritual believers are to go into the world and address these situations to show people who are involved in these things in the world, other than the kingdom of God, that there is a better way. And that way is Jesus Christ. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one cometh to the man by me, but we have to do that. There's a lot of work on our spiritual believers, and in fact, with no offense to you, Hubert, and no disrespect of all who I admire and respect and love so much, us in the spiritual world, like Brother Dave, got to be very careful of allowing ourselves to be invited to be tricked into issues like these that concern the world. Remember, because people came to Jesus with all kind of stuff, and I see why you have to separate themselves as the kingdom of God, right? Because the people just try to trick them with these one-word answers, and you can't answer it like that. The kingdom of God is a different set of values and principles, and these issues don't come up. But I just want to admonish Brother Dave and others like that, the real spiritual believers, that we got to be very careful when we allow ourselves to be invited to discuss these things. But we cannot speak from the kingdom of God and say that we're not speaking from the kingdom of God now. We're speaking as the world, because the only thing we're supposed to be doing to the world is going into the world and preach the gospel, and bring them out of that situation, which is totally terrible for them, because these issues, marital rape and sex issues and using your body, would never, ever come up. Thanks for answering my call. There's so much to go into, but I respect your time.
I fully understand that. Thank you so much. So, Pastor Dave, we don't have a lot of time, so I just want to jump right back to you. As you look at these issues and as you listen to the admonition of the caller just now, and I hope you don't take that 100%, because I believe individuals like yourself who represent a moral compass is very, very important in these conversations. How should we transact this going forward?
Well, I think you have to remember, if you don't have a seat at the table, you become a victim of the negotiations. So if you are a Christian or a citizen of the kingdom, it doesn't mean that you don't live in the world. So if you live in the world, you should have a say in things that relate to you. You don't no longer become a citizen of the Bahamas if you're a citizen of the kingdom of God. It means you have dual citizenship. So it means that you have dual representation. So it's important for us to address these issues, because the world and the leaders need wisdom, and collective wisdom is the most important thing, because if you only have ideas coming from one direction, then you are victims of that ideology. So we need to bring a balance. And when it comes to the issue of marital rape, it is a very thorny issue because of the sensitivity. So, for example, how do you prove marital rape unless there is a physical evidence of abuse? You basically have to take the word of one person over the other. How can you be assured which person is telling the truth? There's even though they have a lie detector test, there's no way to tell. You can reasonably believe that somebody is lying or telling the truth, but there's no way to tell, because there's no equipment available in the world to determine who is actually telling the truth. And what we have seen is the abuse of this law, not only when it comes to marital rape, but rape in general. Like I said, I spent a lot of time doing research, and what I found is that they said that it is estimated in one research article that I saw, is estimated that up to 11% of the persons who are in prison convicted for rape were wrongfully convicted and wrongfully accused. That's a serious thing. The other problem is, even when somebody is innocent and they are accused and their name is made public, their reputation could be ruined forever for something that they are innocent of. So they had, there was a story, you may have seen this story, where there was a college football player who was NFL potential, and a lady in his dorm accused him of rape and actually sued the school, got paid millions of dollars. And then when he got out of prison, after spending years in prison, he contacted her on Facebook, and he got her to admit that she lied. But he already lost his life, and that was not the only incident. There's several other instances. And then, like I said, I researched and found that there were women who were using the marital rape law to extort from their husbands A woman could, these things can happen. So I'm not saying that women shouldn't be protected, but I'm saying that everyone should be equally protected, and we have to be very careful and cautious about any laws implemented to make sure that happens.
Yeah, definitely. And as we come to the end, I think we want to leave it there. What would be, in 30 seconds, Pastor Dave, your final word on this? Final word.
On the marital rape issue?
Yeah, generally on these social issues.
Yeah, well, when it comes to marital rape, I think it has to be done very carefully, researched carefully, and make sure that any laws implemented protect everyone equally, so that we don't just give in to emotionalism and then victimize men because men have been the perpetrators. I think we have to make sure that everyone is protected. And when it comes to things like prostitution, there has to be penalties for crime. There also has to be social interventions. There are groups out there that minister to persons who are in the sex trafficking industry. I think persons who are in the sex trafficking industry, if they are caught, they're sentenced, for some of them, instead of being sentenced to prison, they could be sentenced to counseling and go through a program. Because some of these people, if they don't go through a program like that, they would never have any proper intervention. So I think you have to be creative in managing the situation.
I think that is a good way to end this conversation. We have to approach it with balance. We have to approach it with a sense of creativity and innovation. We have to respond to the fact that there are circumstances which may drive persons in a particular direction. And we must also understand, as it relates to the marital rape issue, that it is not gender specific. It's supposed to be there to protect both spouses, and spouses happen to be male or female. We're going to leave it there today, and we're going to leave it there for a while. Other persons can pick up the baton and run. I want to certainly thank Pastor Dave for his input today. It was certainly refreshing to get his views as usual. All that is left to do now is to say, do not allow your greatness to become a victim of your unwillingness to change. Be good, walk good. COVID is not over, so protect yourself. One love and Ubuntu.